Welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Christy Clemens Hoffman. Each week we will discuss tools, tips, and ways to radiate your best life ever, interviewing practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate? Hi, and welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. Today we radiate wisdom with Carole J. Obley. Did I say that right? Is that Obley?
Yes.
Obley, lovely. Who has written the book, Wisdom from the Spirit World, Life Teachings on Love, Forgiveness, Purpose, and Finding Peace. Carole has been a medium for decades now and teaches others how to connect as well. Welcome, Carole. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Christy. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much. And you're located near the East Coast, outside of Pittsburgh?
I am, but really I connect with people all over the place through phone readings. I've done that for even out of the country because my books are published at my publishers in England. So they get it out to wherever their English is a primary language. So I've been very blessed to connect with for just about every state in the United States, and then some foreign countries too, other countries.
Oh, yes. Yeah. The miracle of phones and the internet makes the world so small these days. And you mentioned your books. And yes, you are a part of John Hunt Publishing, O Books, their imprint. They produce so many fine books. And the books that you've got, I'm just looking at your website. And it's Wisdom from the Spirit World that we're talking about primarily today, although we'll talk about your other books as well. And I do want to mention them. Soul to Soul Connections. And then there's Embracing the Ties That Bind, Connecting with Spirit, Reconnect. And I love this one. I'm Still With You. A book about
That's my second book. That book, it's interesting. Talk about a lesson in faith. You know, when I was writing it, I didn't have a publisher secured at that time. I hadn't made a relationship with a publisher. And so I sat at my computer with headsets on, and I was transcribing from cassette tapes. So that was back that. Yeah, that kind of dates that. But those are completely real and unembellished transcripts from readings that I gave. And I have them arranged in chapters based on the relationships of the communicating spirit to the sitter, the receiver of the reading. And that book is very near and dear to my heart.
Oh, I'm sure it is. I'm looking at this now. You've gotten such wonderful reviews for it, such great endorsements. I know that, from the work that I do and the classes that I teach, that it is so comforting for people to connect with their loved ones. It's tremendously healing. Do you find that too?
It is. I have watched people when I had my office in person. And I would see people a lot in person. I would see them go from, walking in, even their body posture, their body language, and then a half an hour or an hour later, completely transformed. Now, that's nothing I'm doing. I'm simply the conduit, as you are, for that sort of thing. And it's all the healing hands of spirit to be instilled with hope and trust, and knowing that this physical life is only a very small portion of who we are, that we're much, much larger than the physical life. Not that it's not important, it certainly is, because what we do here is our soul's expression and calling.
Yes, absolutely. And that does often involve how we end our life too, what happens at the end. And what
Yes.
changes come about from that. And your book goes through all of this. I love it because it is like a primer for spirit connection, for how the world works, how the universe works, how souls work. Why did you choose to write this book, Wisdom from the Spirit World?
Well, I have to be honest, I really didn't. There was 5 years in between Soul to Soul Connections and this book, and I knew I was probably going to write another book. And it's an enormous task. I always say, don't quit your day job when you write a book, and you have to sneak it in, in the everyday writing. But I woke up 2 Julys ago, about 2.5 years ago, and all of a sudden I knew what I was going to write about. It was kind of given to me intuitively. And it was about these lessons. And there are 10 of them in this book, Wisdom. And they are repeating themes that have come through thousands of readings. And my spirit guides, or those souls who help me with the work I'm doing here, said it's important that people know what these lessons are and what the themes are. And so that formed the skeleton, the outline for this book. And then the third section also, it's divided into 3 sections. The third section is to help people make their own connection, to understand the power that lies within them, and also how to use spiritual tools. And, it's interesting, Christy, because at the time I was writing this, we certainly weren't going through COVID, and we weren't with the massive, political upheaval and change that we're all going through at this time.
Right.
And now when I look back, it was like spirit, was giving me this material, especially the third section on how people can alleviate anxiety and how they can find and connect more deeply with purpose, and working with tools within, things that don't cost any money, that like mindful meditation, merging the personality with the soul, understanding your unique talents and skills. So when I realized that, and I thought, wow, this is really something that could be useful among many others out there today too. There's so many clients I've connected with that are full of anxiety now and uncertainty, and I'm sure that you've spoken with a good many too. So I'm very happy that my book in some small way help people.
I do think it can. The first section, you signed up for this. Okay. The first section is called literally You Signed Up for This, and talks about can you tell us a bit about You Signed Up for This?
Yeah, well, I wanted to use that for that section because it's really, the first section is an exploration of how, as a soul, on a soul level, we make these things. In my books, I call them blueprints. And what they really are designs for living, what we're going to be experiencing here, what our soul needs more practice on, specific qualities, such as, examples of those are compassion, trust, faith, determination. These are what I call soul qualities. And nurturing would be another one. And, offering those things through service, at the same time learning them, and how we sort of plan those before we come here. And so if we understand that from the higher perspective of soul, we can serve and we can navigate through challenges a lot more easily than if we think, gee, why am I cursed with this? Or why is this happening to me? When in fact, we were the ones who signed up for the lessons. And so understanding that, knowing that within difficulty, or within challenge, there's always that pot of gold in there. And that we can somehow use that to evolve spiritually. That's the whole purpose here. And, there's evolution with the individual, but there's also the collective evolution that, right now, especially that we're seeing on this massive level, the whole world going through this. So that's what the first section is about. So instead of looking at ourselves as victims, so to speak, we can look at and see, okay, this has happened. This is coming to me, this particular lesson, this particular circumstance. How can I use it to grow? How can I transcend it?
I love that. And yeah, that's what it is all about, isn't it? Is just having the experience of it. It's not a punishment. It's not a reward. It's not anything personal. It's just having the experience that we need to be a fuller expression of ourselves. I love
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I myself have fallen into that. I have a autoimmune condition, and I've really done a lot of searching. Why did I get this? Why do I live in chronic pain and this and that? So in my first book, there was a whole chapter on illness as a spiritual awakening. So even, something that a lot of us are going to experience at some point is some sort of bodily condition or illness, and what particular qualities is that illness making us aware of? And with me, I found that it's gotten me to slow down and go more into what is called, and Eckhart Tolle, one of my favorite spiritual teachers, calls presence. And, being versus doing. And that has been the hardest lesson for me personally. So I look at what has the condition brought to me. And so I really had to do this introspection with that sort of thing. And, with anything that happens to us that is unpleasant or painful or challenging, we can actually investigate that and simply observe it and say, okay, these qualities are here for me if I choose that. And there's a lot of emphasis in this book on the power of personal choice and the power of free will. And actually, that is one of the lessons. The power of choice determines the quality of our life. And in any given moment, we always have the ability to choose how we're going to either act or react. And that's been a lesson that I've learned from communicating many years with the spirit world.
Oh, absolutely. And what's so rewarding about communicating with the spirit world is we realize just how limitless we are. And so when we talk about these trials, these tribulations, we get the whole picture that it's really just a blip on our entire soul's path.
You're exactly right. I once heard the analogy that one lifetime is equivalent to one grain of sand on a beach. Can you even fathom that? I mean, when I think about that, how many grains of sand are on the beach? But that's how eternal and limitless our soul is. And if there's one thing that, as a medium, that I feel, my conduit has attempted to bring awareness to, it's that there's no reason to fear, there's no reason to be sad. And I'm not in any way diminishing the need to grieve. I think we need to grieve that person's physical presence not being there anymore, or a pet. There's many readings I've done in which pets come through as well. But the knowledge that we are this infinite being that continues on in a place that's actually similar to the earth plane. And I think you alluded to this before too, Christy, that what we do here determines the space that we're going to be in when we go to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So the quality of the consciousness that we leave the physical plane with will determine what our lessons are and what we really do. I'll put "do" in quotes in the spirit world. And one of the things I've seen through countless readings is that people continue on with some of the same work that they were doing here.
Oh, absolutely. I found, because I do quantum healing hypnosis technique, which is Dolores Cannon's work. She's got her picture up here in my office. But I found that not only do we have a life purpose, but we have generally a soul purpose as well, something that we explore from different angles, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. Some purpose, it could be compassion, but we see it from all different sides, right?
Yes. And from my understanding, when we are in a particular soul pod, and that's a group of souls who share sort of a similar consciousness, you can also call them soul family. Mm-hmm. And they may or may not be, and I write about this in the book, and all of my books are very simply written so that people can really grasp the some more complex metaphysical concepts. But we usually don't change that group. We can spend eons, many lifetimes within that same group. For example, I have a sense with you that you're in the group of healers, like I am, mm-hmm. and also teachers. Mm-hmm. So, and those groups can kind of interconnect. And there are soul group members for each individual that are here on the earth plane, and they're also in the spirit world. And it doesn't matter because consciousness, communication between dimensions is always happening. It's always happening, whether we're aware of it or not.
Absolutely. Yeah, this book is full of teachings that I'm sure your other books are as well. Part of what you write about in this first section of the book that we were just discussing is the Akashic records, and this is something that of course, anyone who's finding information about soul path, purpose, soul family, anyone who's doing the work we do, we all tap into the Akashic records. Can you tell us a bit more about what the Akashic records are?
Yeah, and I think in the book I call them the Akashic files. It's the same thing. They are energetic imprints that are connected to the soul's consciousness. They have existed since the beginning of time, whenever that might have been, and they are constantly being added to. You and I sitting here right now are talking and doing this interview. We're adding to our Akashic file. If you think of a giant tape recorder that's always recording, and I'm probably dating myself with that because nobody uses the old-fashioned magnetic tapes anymore, but digital recording even, that's the Akashic file, and they're part of our consciousness. And so everything that we've been, everything that we've done, thought, every experience is recorded in those files. And when we go back into the spirit world, we access those in a second. We can see everything. Here on the earth plane, they can be accessed through things like regression, past life regression. Sometimes people get bleed-throughs of them in dreams. Sometimes people have deja vu sorts of experiences. There are many different ways. Sometimes we just feel, if you've ever had that feeling that somebody, you meet them, and you don't know them on a rational level, but they feel very familiar. There could be, a past life connection between you and that individual. There's many different things that the Akashic can give us. Now, there's also karma in there. In other words, karma is simply a Sanskrit word that means cause and effect. It's neither positive nor negative. It's simply actions or thoughts that we have put out there to the, and those are a part of the files as well. You can access these, and by the way, I have I'm going to be doing a Zoom webinar on the 22nd. Let me check my calendar. I think, yes, it's the 22nd. And I'll be leading people to read their own book of life. Edgar Cayce, the famous American psychic who did his readings in the 1920s and 1930s, he spoke a lot about the Akashic files. He called them God's Book of Remembrance or the Book of Life. And Cayce would go into trance, and he would actually go in there and read these files. And that's where he obtained his information to give to that individual. So to listeners of your podcast here, if you want to know more about Cayce, check out the ARE, Association for Research and Enlightenment, and it is located in Virginia Beach. There's a wealth of information there with the Cayce readings referencing the Akashic files.
Yes. A previous guest, Joanne DiMaggio, I'm not sure if you're familiar with her. She does past life regression as well. And she's very instrumental in the Edgar Cayce Foundation. She had been president of one of the chapters and moved out to Virginia to be closer to that material. Very interesting. Yeah, this stuff has been out in the open more or less for hundreds of years, but not everybody knows about it. That's why I love this book and the others that you've done, because they let us know all of the things that are possible. Now, the second part of it, we go over the teachings about afterlife, the bond of love, power of choice, life values. Our wounds do not dim the light within. I love that. And releasing the past accelerates our spiritual growth. Yeah, so you get into more of the heart, the soul, the nuggets of teachings. How do you feel like you approach that part of the book about the teachings? How'd you determine what to put in there? Because there's so much.
Well, again, a lot of it is from my, thousands of readings. At this point, I've probably, I don't know, if you use a number, I think on my website I might have 10,000. It's probably more than that at this point. And there are mediums out there who have done more, but I'm not an assembly line medium. I would rather give quality than quantity. And each individual that connects with me is a sacred soul, and I consider them very important. And there's one underlying theme there. Everybody wants to know, what lies beyond this physical plane. So one of the teachings, the very first one, is there is an afterlife. So, it seems very, kind of mundane or whatever. But there are some people who, maybe are questioning that, is there something after this? Because we go through this thing, the veil of forgetfulness, when we first come here. And that's so that we can focus on right here and right now and, this current lifetime. These were given to me by Spirit, but I arranged them in repeating themes that I heard over and over again in countless readings. And the chapter that you referenced, that you liked, the title, Our Wounds Do Not Diminish the Light Within. I thought that was such a beautiful title. It came to me, and I'm sure through Spirit inspiration. And that chapter is really about no matter what challenge that we have in life, whether it's from a bad home, early life, childhood, abuse, abandonment, addiction, what relationship issues, whatever it might be, those do not diminish the core identity of who we are. They are simply experiences that we have. They are not us unless you identify with them. And the difference between identification and observation is. Identification means we take that on. We make that part of who we are. And so it does in some way shape us, these experiences, these so-called negative or painful experiences that we go through. But yet the past has no power over us, only the power that we give it. And so I see and I observe, unfortunately, a lot of people taking on a victim mentality because of their past. And so what they're really doing is preventing their own evolution, by doing that. And I feel also advocating personal responsibility, because it's very easy to say, oh, because I had a really crappy childhood, I can't do this or I can't do that or I suffer from this. Whereas that was an experience that you had, but it doesn't dim that light that is the spark of spirit within you. It is an opportunity to awaken to the greater potential that lies within you. And Christy, a lot of those experiences, as I stated before, are planned by the soul. And if you go back, you're not going to have a conscious, in your rational mind, remembrance of that. And I don't think a lot of people do. But yet, many readings I've done, when the person goes to the spirit world, they'll say, I understand now why I went through this. And they'll say that to the sitter or the receiver of that reading. And the sitter will say, that's something that I always wondered about, like, why did my mom have to go through that particular illness? Or why did she have such a hard life, or whatever it might be. So people really need to know that the past has no power. And by the way, that brings me into a topic that I spent a lot of time on in this book, and it's forgiveness.
Yes.
And, I think that forgiveness is something that people don't really understand the true meaning of it. It doesn't mean that we're okaying, that we're perfectly fine with what happened to us, or if someone hurt us. What forgiveness means in a spiritual sense is a release of the past. And it means I don't want to carry that anymore. It doesn't mean necessarily I'm okay with it, but I'm making a conscious choice. Again, this power of choice being emphasized, to release things that I've kept the lessons, but I'm releasing the pain, because it ends up hurting me when I carry it. So I do spend a good bit of time in this book talking about the spiritual importance, and really I consider it a cornerstone of healing, forgiveness.
Oh, absolutely. And I've had some guests on this podcast who've had really difficult stories, but found their way to forgiveness. And it was just so redemptive. I mean, it's like setting down a 1,000-pound weight and not having to carry it anymore. That's essential for growth. And, you mentioned that we choose all of our experiences. We have no cognitive recollection that we did so, but, people ask all the time, well, why would we choose cancer? Why would I choose sexual abuse? Why would I choose these things? And so what is your answer for that?
Well, and I've addressed this in all of my books. On a conscious level, our personality self, our ego self, and by the way, I never demonize the ego. I think a lot of New Age teachings have demonized the ego, and it's not to be demonized. It's simply something that we need to navigate here, on the physical plane. And the personality is an extension of the ego. When you connect the ego and the personality with the soul, that's when you offer your unique contribution to the world. So you need the personality. You absolutely have to have that.
Absolutely.
And you asked me, I'm sorry, why we go through that?
Right. People ask me all the time, well, why would I choose to be
Yeah.
sexually assaulted? Why would I choose to have incest in my family?
Well, on a conscious level, we don't choose these things. Certainly, I think about my personality. Would my personality be able to do most of the things I've done in life? No. My soul, however, is the one that I try to let in charge of things. We can either lead through personality or we can lead through soul, or we can lead through optimally the combination of those two things. So, and I mean lead, live life. That's what I mean by lead. We can lead our life that way. So we wouldn't choose it on a conscious level, but on a soul level, you see, you have to understand the soul in its perfection only knows the expression of the divine within. It doesn't know about suffering. It doesn't know about time. It doesn't know about limitation. It knows only about the expression of the divine. So we come here into this physical world, which is a world of duality. We have good and bad, dark and light, male and female. We have, things that are highly positive. We have things that are ugly. We have things that are beautiful. There's always these contrasts. Here's the paradox, and I find that the more that I go on to the spiritual pathway, the more highly paradoxical it is. Through duality, we learn oneness. Through duality, we learn unity. So, experiencing pain is a powerful motivator and a greater opportunity to awaken to the divine within than, everything is rosy and peachy and, there's no issues. Seldom do we learn that way. We just don't learn that way. We usually learn through pain. And, we can learn through joy. And hopefully, humans will come to that point. But most of us have to experience some form of suffering. And this sounds very Buddhist in nature, what I'm talking about. And Buddhism talks a lot about the nature of suffering and the world being suffering. So it's a great opportunity to awaken. And, you've probably heard that expression. I'm probably going to paraphrase it, but, pain is necessary, suffering is optional, or something like that. We can make that choice. So we're all going to fall down. We're all going to, hit our knees. We're all going to hit our head. We're going to have pain. But the difference is, what do we do with that? Are we going to learn from it? Or are we going to stay stuck in it? And I think you and I both know people that we've encountered that stay stuck in it. And they keep going on that merry-go-round. So there's always free will, though, to make the choice.
Yes.
To another lesson. The power of choice determines the quality of our life.
Did you know that Radiate Wellness has a subscription-based premium content Facebook group? Think of it like the premium version of this free podcast. In this premium Facebook group, you can find great content like replays of online classes, meditations on angels, chakras, mindfulness, and more, guest speakers, mini classes, polls. Plus, you'll be the first to know of guests that we have scheduled for the podcast and can submit questions for them. You get all of this great content for one low monthly price, and the first month is half off. You can subscribe by going to radiatewellnesscommunity.com/shop. Click the subscriptions button and you're in. Also, while I have your attention, wherever you're listening to this free podcast, if you could just do us a couple of favors, please. One is go to hit the subscribe or follow button. Then you'll be notified of all of the episodes we have coming out each week. Also, please rate and review. It sounds really simple, but it helps us to grow our audience when people are looking for great podcasts. And when we grow our audience, we can do bigger and better things and bring you even more great guests. So please do those couple of things, and that will help us grow this audience and this podcast. Thank you so much for listening.
There's always that choice to come off of that wheel of suffering.
Mm-hmm. And so when we do talk about the Akashic records, when we talk about the plan that we made for our life, what is the role of choice in that plan? Can we veer from that plan?
Yes, I believe that there are options, and that is precisely why in my writings I have called these things, these agreements, I have called them blueprints instead of contracts.
Yeah.
Because to me, a contract is you sign on the dotted line and there's no wiggle room. Now, with a blueprint, it's sort of more an outline that you can fill in, that the soul can make choices within that design. And so, say for example, that one of my blueprints is, I'm from this soul perspective, and in the first part, I give a little analogy. You're floating high above, and you think about what do I still need experience with? What's going to make me grow more? And so I look and I go, well, I need to learn more compassion. I need more exercises in compassion. So I believe that we have choice as to how we're going to learn these particular qualities. So, for example, if I chose compassion, I might be born into a family that I suffer a lot of abuse. And so I have this ability then when I grow up and come out of there, am I going to extend compassion in some way first to self, and not thinking I'm worthless, like I grew up with that message, but really extending compassion to self, then radiating them out to others. Or I could perhaps choose to work with abused animals, abandoned animals. I could choose to work with the elderly. I could choose to work in some way with teaching children who are challenged. There's many ways we can express compassion. I could go to countries that are very poor, and I'm thinking of like a Mother Teresa she had to be working on compassion, in the lifetime she had. So there's many different options, I believe, that the soul can meet its karma in any given lifetime.
Right. I always see it as, our various lifetimes. For example, we're working with the theme or the sole purpose of compassion. One lifetime we need to be abused. Another lifetime we need to witness abuse. Another lifetime we need to be the abuser, so that we can see this issue from all sides, and that
Yes.
we can have that full reckoning.
I will tell you that what you just stated, I have personally seen. I no longer do regressions for clients. I do, one of the things I do is Akashic record reading, where I'm, connected with a client, and I have them prepare ahead of time, with a couple of challenges they've had or things that they want to investigate more deeply. And then I go into the Akashic and read, where did that come from? And one of the things that I've seen is that there's this flip-flop sometimes of roles. And it could involve someone else from the soul family. That could be a current family member for them, but someone biologically related. It could be a friend. It could be a coworker. It could be a spouse, a partner. But generally we travel with people, and yes, I've often seen this flip-flop of roles, and it's almost like the soul needs to hold up this lesson and examine it from all different angles and to look deeply within it. And we always have the choice to change. within any given time, as far as how we're going to relate to that karma that we've chosen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, in your writings, you write about your awakening to the practice of mindfulness through a bout of severe anxiety. How did that help your perspective?
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up, because I feel it's very important,
Mhm.
especially at this time that we're in, for people to know that there is a valuable resource within every human being, and that's the breath. And the breath is always available to you. You wouldn't be here without it. You can connect with it at any time. Don't close your eyes if you're driving, but mindfulness is very simple. A child can do it, an elderly person can do it, and it's simply focusing on the breath, allowing the breath to pull you into the present moment, out of the past. And anxiety, especially, is based in the future. Eckhart Tolle says anxiety is what happens between now and then. That's what he says about anxiety, and that's true. So what happened to me was I was in such severe anxiety at the time,
Yeah.
and I went to counseling. I think everybody at some point can benefit from even having psychological counseling.
Wow.
And I started on an 8-week program of mindfulness and doing the meditations 2 or 3 times a day. They're very simple, and they're short meditations, maybe 10 minutes max. And so what I noticed was that within my breath, that's where spirit is, spirit being the God energy.
Right.
And I actually literally heard in my head, and I wrote this in the book, when my mind was in this loop. And that's what anxiety is. It builds upon itself. And it was in this endless loop of just going over and over and over. And, I'm sweating and my heart is racing and I couldn't sleep. I heard in my head the voice, I'm in your breath. It was barely discernible. It was almost a whisper. And I heard spirit speaking to me like that. I to tear up and talk about it, because it was such a horrible time. And from when I was young, I've had anxiety attacks and panic attacks. And this last bout about did me in. It was so terrible. So once I started on that program, it changed my life. It was certainly not overnight. And I'm not here to, say you're just going to snap your fingers and it's going to be instantly better. But once you start to retrain this monkey mind, they call it, you can have that accessible tool. It's always there for you. It's free. It's yours for the asking, and to use that. But it really helps to bring your focus back to front and center. And it really does help with anxiety.
Absolutely. And what you say about the breath and the spirit saying, I am in the breath, that's what inspiration literally means.
I know.
Yeah. Isn't that beautiful what our language tells us?
Yes, a long time ago, I took Kundalini yoga,
Mhm.
and I remember the teacher saying that, and she said, and she was a wonderful teacher, and she said, um, Kundalini works with the breath of raising that life force energy at the base of the spine in the tailbone, and when you start to awaken spiritually. And this is not just for you or me; it's for anybody. It's a human condition. When we start to awaken spiritually, that energy starts to come up the spine. Well, you can make it happen faster by breathing and releasing, and issues might come up for you. But I remember her saying, inspiration means to literally inhaling spirit, and inviting spirit in. And into your soul, your body, your mind.
Oh, I love that. I love that. You mentioned certain resources to build one's spiritual connection. I'm sure that's in addition to the breath, in addition to mindfulness. What are some of these other resources that you talk about?
Yeah, well, one of them is connecting with nature.
Oh, yeah.
I always say if you want to understand God or spirit, my word for God is spirit. If you want to understand spirit, turn to nature because nature operates through these things called natural law. Natural law are immutable principles that govern everything, and they are immutable, they are eternal, and whether you believe in them or not, they are always operating. So nature is pure in that sense. It's only when humans interfere with nature, and we see this all the time, that some kind of destruction takes place or things come out of balance. So nature is, opening your senses without labeling things. If you take a walk outdoors, if you go and sit in the park, go in your backyard, look at a tree. A tree emanates presence. Flowers emanate presence. And without labeling them, just experience that. That unto itself is a form of meditation. So that's a very important spiritual tool. We talked about meditation and mindfulness. That's a very important spiritual tool. Prayer, and that's more of putting out there and communing with higher source, making that connection, and sending good and positive thoughts to other people. That is prayer.
Yes.
I think sometimes people don't like the word prayer, especially metaphysically inclined people, because they equate it with religion. And yes, it is a word that's used in religion, but it can also mean positive thoughts. If you're praying for someone who's ill, see them as healthy, see them as happy. And even if they're not open to receive that, you can lay it at their feet like a gift. And none of that is ever wasted. The other thing that I mentioned, another tool, is connecting with non-human beings, and those are animals. I love animals. I am passionate about animals. I've done charity work a lot. I have a big event coming up in which I'm donating 100% of my mediumship to the animals. And I think animals are very important spiritual teachers for us. They come with the identity of presence. They don't have this thing called an ego, and they or a personality. And I mean, yes, we have pets that have personalities, and certainly that's true. But they simply are in the present moment, and we can learn from them. If you go out and say, and you have a dog, and you're gone 5 minutes. When I used to have dogs, I have cats now, and they teach me a lot about Zen, about being in the moment. But a dog has no concept of time. If you're gone for 5 minutes or 5 days, they're going to greet you the same, and they're excited to see you. And they don't have that concept of time. So we can learn an awful lot from connecting with the animals, and they teach us about compassion. I have such I am I don't eat animals. I've given that up. I wrote about that in the book. I watched a couple of factory farm videos, and that was the end of that for me. So they teach us about compassion. They teach us about presence. They teach us about nurturing. I just posted. I spend a lot of time on social media, and I posted a video of. And this just happened. It was a gorilla, an endangered gorilla that gave birth, and you should see her with this baby gorilla. I mean, she is holding this gorilla and will not put this baby down. And so I watch those things, and I feel that within my soul, and everything stops for those few moments that I'm watching that sort of interaction, with animals or between animals. So I hate to call them, because they're living beings; they're not a tool, but it's something that we can do. to, even with birds, we can listen to the birds singing, even if you don't have pets. And without labeling them, oh, what kind of bird is that? Just enjoy the sound of the bird and the presence. And a lot of times I think that they bring us into presence, if we are alert to sound, if we go outdoors. So a combination of all those things. Another tool is writing, keeping a spiritual journal. That's a very important tool. Because when I took my early training in mediumship, we did a lot of writing. And our teachers were very adamant about when you do meditation or, you're learning how to do readings, write things down. And then you can access it again and you can learn from that.
Right. And you have done some extensive training in mediumship and healing and metaphysical topics. How long have you been doing this kind of stuff?
About 30 years. Maybe a little bit less than 30, maybe, I don't know, 26, 27 years. Right. But the very first thing, and you and I were chatting a bit before the podcast, I started out with Reiki, the Japanese healing modality, hands-on healing. I started with that, and I allowed about a year or so in between the levels, and I got my mastership many years ago. It's a very useful energy. And then I started taking a lot of classes. There was a metaphysical center in a small town. Who would think, but in a small town that's not far from me here. And then I went to a place called Delphi. It's near Atlanta, Georgia. And I've taken many classes, and I've also taught many classes at Lilydale, New York, which is a huge, well, it's not huge, but it is the largest spiritual center for largest U.S. center for spiritualism.
Right.
It's really, comparatively speaking, it isn't large. It's sort of a gated community. Everyone that lives there is a medium, but they bring nationally known people in there, to teach and so forth. I've taught there many times, and so I've taken a lot of training there. I continue to take training because you can't rest on your laurels, as I know in this field. It's constantly, spirit is constantly working with us to kind of upgrade. I always say it's a self-upgrading program, when you're doing healing work for others, and you always got to clear out your own stuff too. So I've taken online training with John Holland, and some different teachers. And I continue to do that because I want to keep growing and I want to be better, so that I can bring more when I do my readings for people.
Oh, absolutely. When there is so much to learn too. And everyone, it seems that we're all now in this downloading process. We're downloading all this information, and it's almost like whack-a-mole. I'm trying to play that whack-a-mole game. We're trying to find out all of the information that we can. So yeah, you've been at this a long time and have, done thousands and thousands of readings, about 10,000, and teach as well, and do workshops and things like that, and write your books. You're just swimming in all of this. Your website is soulvisions.net. All of your books are on there. You have CDs too. Tell me about the CDs.
Yeah, and if I may, Christy, I connect with a lot of people and post a lot on my professional page on Facebook, and that's facebook.com /soul medium, SOUL plus the word medium, facebook.com/soul medium. My CDs, Igniting Your Spiritual Intuition, that's a compilation of about 10 years, probably more than that, of teaching. There's 3 CDs in there, plus a workbook that accompanies it. And it's to help people with home development and intuition, with a spiritual emphasis, and reconnect is two guided meditation CDs on there: the Healing Temple and Connecting with the Other Side is one of them too, to help people do that on their own. And I'm always reminding people, you have the ability within yourself, and because of the bond of love, to connect with loved ones, you have the most important, necessary ingredient to do that, and that's the bond of love with your loved ones, whether it's humans or pets, or friends, whatever, your family, friends, and pets. And then healing always emanates from within too. So, and those feature that particular CD, Reconnect. It features crystal bowls and shakuhachi flute, and it's pretty ethereal. I've had people tell me they really go into, they can really go deeply with that particular CD. So I'm pleased to offer that as well.
Oh, that is wonderful. Yes, there's so much that people can do on their own. There's tons and tons of resources and tools out there for folks who want to take a deeper dive and explore what they can. And I always like to say that, you can cut your own hair, but sometimes it's better if someone helps you with that. And so we can connect on our own, but sometimes it's better if we've got a professional to help us. And you offer readings around the world, don't you?
Yeah, I've been blessed to connect with people from all walks of life. And as I said, almost all of the United States, and that's all through the telephone. I have my good old-fashioned landline here; it never lets me down. But for international people, I also do Skype. So either way, but I read very well. I've also done many years of radio. I early in my career, Spirit put me on the radio early, and it was kind of nerve-wracking in the beginning, but I really, because I'm highly clairaudient, and that means being able to hear spirit, as well as clairvoyant and clairsentient, which is feeling and seeing. I've done a lot of radio readings, and these are mini readings, but I've tuned in pretty well, through doing those live. So those are part of my thousands as well that I've done on the radio.
Wonderful. And I see that people can schedule a reading with you online, going to your website. And then you also offer your classes and workshops as well as webinars there. That is great. Well, what's next for you? Do you have another book that's in the works or in the pipeline?
Well, it's not in the works, but I already got the idea for it, and I'm not gonna spill the beans on that. But it is going to be something that will be definitely directly inspired by spirit. In other words, those who work through me. My own spirit guides are wonderful, and I sometimes ignore them, just like they ignore me sometimes. But I have the quietest spirit guides in the universe. I swear, they take this hands-off approach, and they're like, "No, you got to figure that out for yourself. We're not going to give you the answer." And they have literally said that to me sometimes. You have to evolve through that. And there's times, in readings where somebody asks a question and I'll say, what about this or that? And I won't get an answer to it. And I tell people it's not me. It's karmic. You have to evolve. The situation has to unfold in the way it's going to unfold. If I tell you something, that's going to color that situation. So my spirit guides will do that with me sometimes too.
Oh, yes. They tell me all the times about relationship questions. It's like, we're not giving you the answer. That's going to color.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
But yes, I will be writing another book, and it will have This one is going to be very easy to read. All my books are pretty simple to read. There's a lot of dialogue in them. And this next book, I feel, is probably going to be a lot of spiritual teaching, but broken down in a way that people can really, it's going to be very accessible so that people who aren't, highly knowledgeable about metaphysics or whatever, can really apply it. And I'm extremely practical in nature because I'm a sun sign Capricorn. So I'm always looking at usefulness. How can you use that, that information? How can you make it practical into your own life?
Mm-hmm. Oh, wonderful. I love that. I too am a very practical spiritual person because we have to function in a practical world, in a pragmatic world.
Absolutely. You need balance is everything. You need both.
Yeah, absolutely. Both. You do. You do. Well, Carole, thank you so much. This has been just wonderful talking with you. I've been so excited because your world is my world. Everything that you do, I'm just eager for more. And it's been a great time to connect with you. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thank you. My pleasure, Christy. Wonderful interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Radiate Wellness is a community of holistic and alternative healers and consultants based in the Kansas City area, dedicated to helping you create spiritual, energetic, and physical well-being. To learn more about our practitioners, services, classes, and events, or to schedule an appointment, visit us at radiatewellnesscommunity.com.